By definition, an antenna is a metal whip designed to receive and transmit radio signals within a given area.
It's BS in the Morning on KSLQ and Westplex 107.1.
Now, what listeners will be pleased to know, if they go to johncombest.com today, there is an article about what the Missouri Department of Revenue is doing right now to decrease wait times. And here's the teaser. What happens if your friendly or unfriendly local license office has wait times that are too long, how many strikes they get, and what the penalty is? You can find that at johncombest.com this morning.
It's interesting you should bring that up because of the fact, and I'll tell you, maybe you'll get a kick out of the story, maybe you won't. Have you ever heard my story about where I go to get all my license plates?
I don't know that.
I go to Jefferson City. I drive down to the Department of Revenue.
Yes, actually, I have heard this story.
And I go, right. and what's gotten interesting is they now have a concierge. There's a bizarre, weird story how this whole thing happened. I don't want to go through the whole crazy story, but I had a car that I ended up with that was one of my family members' cars that was of all things stolen. And when the car was stolen, it was the family member that owned the car was dead. They were no longer alive. The car got recovered, got put into an impound lot, and I was told by the impound lot that I could not get the car out unless the person who was on the title showed up to receive the car. And unfortunately, this was one of my family members. I'll be honest with you, it was my mother. And my mother was passed away at the time, still is, and they wouldn't let me have the car. So I made a deal with the tow lot that they applied for a salvage title, and I had to go have the car. You know this whole crazy procedure. If you have a salvage title, you have to go have the car inspected by the Missouri Highway.
It's got to be clean or something. Yeah.
You have to go. Actually take it to one of the highway patrol garages, and they inspect it the whole bit. So when I went down there, I had to go to Jefferson City to have the car inspected at the garage for the Missouri Highway Patrol. And the guy said to me, he says, you can just go over to the Truman State Office building and get this taken care of. He says, they're real good at this. He says, you might have problems at the various license bureaus, because he gives me a form that essentially would turn my salvage title car into a previously salvage title car. So in other words, it still says salvage on it, but it can be licensed. Whereas a total salvage title car cannot be licensed. It has to be cleared by the state. So I go over to Jefferson City, just down the road, and I go, man, this place is great. I'm in and out like in 20 minutes. I had all these forms to fill out. So every time I get something done, I go down to Jefferson City. So the last time I was there, a month and a half ago, 2 months or so ago, and got another set of license plates. I drive to Jefferson City, and Shelly makes fun of me because my trip is, I usually go on a Friday afternoon. I get there about 3:30, 4 o'clock. They close at 4:30, usually pretty slow. And now there's a concierge who greets you and it's very nice and gives you a number.
That's great.
And sits down. So I try to compliment there's an article that appeared a couple months ago about how they're doing this same kind of thing. The guy's name is, you probably know her off the top of your head, Wayne. What's his name? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Wayne Wallingford. Yep.
Okay.
The head of Department of Revenue. Yep.
So I tried to call him and compliment him. I might as well tried to call Joe Biden when he's on vacation on the beach in Delaware. Because I got
that surprises me that he's hard to get to.
Oh, terrible! And to the point where this is like one of the great stories is, if you probably gone through this before. I call on the main number. They get, hi, thanks for calling the Missouri Department of Revenue. If you have a title issue, press 1. You get the whole menu. Okay. If you have other issues, press 5. So I get to the lady and I said, can I talk to Wayne? She goes, I'm sorry, but he doesn't take phone calls. I go, can I talk to his assistant? Well, she doesn't. Can I leave a voicemail? No. Well, I can tell you right now that she very rarely responds to voicemails. I'm thinking to myself, okay, great. We have, she says, your best bet is to email her. I go, can't I just talk to her? And then she says, well, you can talk to so-and-so. I go, what's her direct dial number? I can't give that out.
Of course you. Yeah. Come on, Brad. Who do you think? You think you're really going to get a direct line to somebody who reports to somebody who runs something?
So here's what she tells me. She tells me, here's how you get a hold of her. Call this number and hit 6. And she gives me the number. I said, that's the number I called to get you. And I'm going, so I have to hang up, call the same number back. Anyway, long story made short, I tried to give him a compliment, and I said to her, there's no way you can give a message to anybody who will call me back. I told her, I said, look, I'm not trying to pull rank or anything like that, but I'm a radio guy. I talk about this all the time. I love coming to Jefferson City. You do such a nice job down there. I drive an hour and a half to go to Jefferson City, get my license plates renewed. Why can't you let me talk to Wayne? And he's all over, and there's quotes from the Post-Dispatch. I called, and and I left a number. Nobody ever called me back. I'm going like, okay, what? See, there'll
be an end around. Maybe we'll find it, and this will be a case study of how to circumvent state government. Maybe we'll find one in the next week or so.
But John, don't you find it frustrating when these people are supposedly are quote unquote public servants? And
yeah, and at the same time, the folks that work for them would like to consider themselves to be gatekeepers, because everything is based on, let's do everything we can to minimize risk, because God forbid somebody actually get in touch with the decision maker and the decision maker says something that, they shouldn't say, or somebody's recording a conversation. So instead of letting good stuff in, the priority is keeping bad stuff out.
Well, let's take this to a national scale. We have the tale of a former president and a current president. The former president would answer any question from any reporter at any time, right?
Absolutely. Yep. That's a key, and that's why the media loves them. The media pretends that they hate Donald Trump,
right?
But he gave them access like Barack Obama or Ronald Reagan or George Bush never would.
Right. And Joe Biden, he never talks to anybody.
Right.
I mean, and that's to me, and you worked in corporate environments. To me, and I know if like the president of Monsanto or Bayer or like that, or the president of Anheuser-Busch, he took phone calls all day long from, Joe Sixpack like you and me, he wouldn't get any work done.
For sure. Of course.
I get that. But by the same token, there has to be a happy medium where someone in an intermediary or like an assistant or something like that would talk to you and say, you know what, that's very interesting. I'm going to go. Now, here's the crazy thing about this. I told this story about 2 or 3 weeks ago. There's a guy by the name of Del Walmsley. Do you know who this guy is?
No.
Okay. He runs a company called Lifestyles Unlimited. He's an interesting character in that originally he lived here in the St. Louis area for a while. But Del Walmsley.
Oh, he has a national show. This is the guy you called who had a national show, and you got him on the line right away. Doesn't he do real estate or some kind of?
Yes.
Or is it a motivational type thing?
No, he's a real estate guy, and he's what's interesting. He talks about how he's retired. I kid him about the fact that he's the most retired guy I've ever met because of the fact, well, I'm retired. He's got this deep voice, talks like that. I'm Del Walmsley.
And he had a radio show on somebody's
He still does.
Station, right?
He's on 97.1. He's on 7 o'clock Monday through Friday, and he does a weekend show at 1 o'clock on Saturdays. Okay. One day, I called, and I wanted to talk to Del. I mean, literally, I wanted to talk to the head guy. And I said to the lady, and she was very nice about it. She says, well, I can't give you his phone number, but he answers all his emails, and he answers them very quickly. And I go, really? And she goes, here's his email address. And it was the same it was the same email address. It's the same email address that's on the website. And I think to myself, that's not his email address. That's going to, like, somebody who's, like, you know what I mean? Like some assistant or something like that. So I email him, and within a half an hour, I put my phone number. Hey, Del, love to talk to you. Here's my phone number. He calls me up. This guy is worth 9 figures. This guy is well into the hundreds of millions of dollars in net worth. I mean, literally, he told the story once, a pretty funny story, about going to the bank to cash a check. And the lady, the bank teller, said to him, you have to show some ID. And when she goes into the account, her eyes got like as big as saucers, because supposedly at the time, this is his checking account. His personal checking account had like $12 million in it. And he was cashing a check for like $50 or something like that. And she said,
gosh, and actually that's pretty bad cash management.
Right. So anyway,
you should have that in some sort of, CD or bond thing.
I hear you. So anyway, the point being, here's a guy who runs a national company who has hundreds of employees. Matter of fact, he might be up to thousands of employees. And the guy, and it's not just me, he tells me he does this to anybody. I said, so in other words, if somebody emails you, he says, I answer every email, and if someone asks me to call them, I call them. And I'm going like, God, this is fascinating. So here you've got, to me, that guy is, if he's the biggest jerk in the world, I still think he's a great guy because he has that personal touch that he does with his company. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And that sets people apart. And you'll remember that. And, think of how many times you've told that story and how many thousands of people have heard that story and now have a positive impression of him because of one phone call that he made.
Have you heard about Salt River Automotive? Not only are we open for business and ready to serve you, we are sponsors of the BS in the Morning Show on Westplex 107.1. Check us out on Facebook at Salt River Automotive LLC. See you soon.